It began with a smell, faint at first, barely there, almost sweet, like something chemical hidden beneath the air. Lena first noticed it on a Wednesday night as she walked up the narrow stairwell of her apartment building, balancing groceries in one hand and her keys in the other. The hallways always smelled a bit old, a blend of dust, cleaning spray, and the faint must of worn carpet. But this was different. It didn't belong. At first, she tried to ignore it. Old buildings always carried strange odors, pipes rusting, someone cooking something foreign, maybe garbage left out too long. But each day as she came home from work, the smell seemed stronger. It clung to her clothes, lingered in the walls. And every time she reached her floor, the third, it was waiting for her. She started to notice something else, too. Her neighbor across the hall, Mr. Halpern in 3B, hadn't been around much lately. He was quiet, always kept to himself, maybe in his 60s. The kind of man you greet out of habit, not affection. They'd exchanged polite nods for years, and that was the extent of the relationship. But she couldn't remember the last time she'd seen him. His lights were always off. His mail, uncollected. One night when the smell grew unbearable, Lena paused outside his door. It was definitely coming from there. Her stomach twisted with unease as she leaned closer. There was a faint humming sound behind the door. Not quite mechanical, not quite human. She knocked softly at first, then harder. No answer. Her mind told her to leave it alone. People have private lives. Maybe he was sick. Maybe he went out of town. Maybe it was just something she didn't need to get involved in. But curiosity and disgust gnawed at her. She reported it to the building's superintendent the next morning. He promised he would check it out, but days passed and the smell only grew worse. Sweet and rotten, metallic and floral, a contradiction that made her eyes sting. She started having trouble sleeping, imagining that whatever was causing it was somehow spreading through the vents, filling her lungs with its invisible weight. Then came the flies. Tiny black specks gathered near the light above 3B, circling the hallway like a slow orbit. She found one stuck to her doorframe, its wings quivering weakly. That was when she stopped trying to ignore it. She went downstairs again, demanded that the super open the apartment. He resisted, said there were privacy rules, procedures, notices. She didn't care. Her voice broke in anger. Something was wrong, she told him, seriously wrong. The next morning, he finally brought a key. Lena stood a few steps behind him as he turned the lock. The smell that spilled out was indescribable. It hit like a wave, thick, humid, suffocating. She gagged, covering her mouth. The superintendent swore under his breath. Inside, the air was heavy, still. The curtains were drawn, but sunlight leaked through in weak stripes, touching everything with a yellowed glow. Dishes sat in the sink, stacked high, with mold blooming like gray fur. The refrigerator door was open, humming weakly, but the source of the smell wasn't there. It was coming from deeper within. They found him, or what was left of him, in the bedroom. Mr. Halpern was lying on the bed, pale and still, his body bloated with decay. He'd been dead for at least a week. The police came, the coroner. They covered him, carried him out, and for a while the hallway buzzed with the noise of official voices. Lena watched from her doorway, numb. She felt guilty. She had lived just a few feet away while he decomposed in silence. The building returned to normal after that, at least on the surface. The smell faded, the door to 3B was sealed with yellow tape, and new tenants were promised soon. But something about it didn't sit right. The police said natural causes. Heart failure, alone in bed. And yet Lena couldn't shake what she saw. When the paramedics lifted the sheet, she caught a glimpse of something on his chest. A mark, circular, blackened, like a burn. Too precise to be random. She told herself it didn't matter. She moved through her days, avoiding that door. But a week later, she began hearing it, a faint humming again, exactly like before, coming from 3B. The apartment was supposed to be empty. One night, unable to stand it, she pressed her ear to the wall between their units. The sound was clearer, mechanical, rhythmic, almost alive. Her heart pounded as she whispered into the silence, "Hello?" The noise stopped. She froze. Seconds stretched into forever. Then from the other side, a slow creak, as if someone had leaned against the wall, mirroring her. A faint, wet breath. Then words, rasping and quiet. "Did you smell it too?" Lena stumbled back, pulse hammering, her throat dry. She ran to the hall, but the door to 3B was still sealed, the tape unbroken. The apartment still dark. She never called the police again. She didn't sleep for 3 nights. By the fourth, she'd packed her things and left without notice. Weeks later, a new tenant moved in. A young couple this time. They stayed only 2 days before breaking the lease. The woman claimed there was a noise at night, a man's voice whispering from the vents. The landlord laughed it off, said it was just an old building. But every so often, when the weather changes and the air feels heavy, residents on the third floor still talk about that faint, sweet smell that comes and goes. No one stays in 3B for long. Harold Benson wasn't the kind of man who liked mysteries. He liked his life simple, his morning paper, his evening tea, and the quiet hum of his small suburban street. The kind of neighborhood where nothing ever really happened, and that was exactly how he liked it. But there was one thing that started to bother him. One house across the street where the lights never ever turned off. At first, he didn't think much of it. Maybe the neighbors had left for a trip and forgot. Maybe they were scared of the dark. People did odd things sometimes. But after 2 weeks of seeing the same bright glow through their front window, morning, noon, and long into the night, Harold began to feel uneasy. It was the Calloway house, a modest blue home with white shutters and a wide front porch. The family that lived there had always seemed ordinary enough. 2 parents, a teenage daughter, a golden retriever that barked every time the mail came. They weren't close, but they waved, smiled.